Have you guys ever gotten passionately angry over something that you otherwise have zero strong feelings toward, one way or another?
Super Kid Icarus is total bullshit.
There are children starving in Somalia, yet this is what I choose to get upset over. Super Kid Icarus is simultaneously one of the most obscure, yet well-known cancelled Nintendo games. I see it mentioned online pretty frequently, and it even appears on the Lost Games and Kid Icarus wiki, and have overall been regarded as fact by the greater Nintendo Lost media community. Despite this, the legitimacy of the claims are something that I find dubious at best, and today I want to settle this once and for all, and finally put Super Kid Icarus down as one of the many fake rumored games from the early ages of the medium. It's kinda strange to me that not many people have questioned the legitimacy of the claims, as this rumor is nearly 30 years old now. LSSQ did a video on it a few years back that was my first exposure to it, and he similarly came to the conclusion that Super Kid Icarus is a load of crock. But since then, I've still seen it mentioned in passing. What are the rumored details surrounding Super Kid Icarus, and where exactly did they come from? Well, the details themselves are a bit scarce. No gameplay was shared, with the most we got being specification for the game's cartridge. Because back then, a game using a larger cartridge was a pretty big selling point. Then, where did the rumors come from? Well, from my research, there are only 4 magazines that make a mention of Super Kid Icarus, being Game Fan Volume 4, Issue 3, Game Power, Issue 25, Super Play, Issue 20, and allegedly, Electronic Gaming Monthly. The most publicized source for Super Kid Icarus is easily Game Fan. If you look Super Kid Icarus up online, the blurb from this magazine is one of the first results for it. The issue's from March 1996, and the Super Kid Icarus blurb can be found on page 94, under the Other Stuff section. The Other Stuff section was composed pretty much entirely of gaming rumors and leaks of the time. And what I find most interesting is that this section actually has legit info in it. Most significantly, it has details about the, at the time, unannounced game, Crash Bandicoot, which at this point was going by the name of Willy the Wombat, a title reflected in the article. This issue's from March 1996, and Crash Bandicoot wasn't officially revealed until May 96 at E3, so that gives the information here a little bit of credibility. The blurb doesn't really say much about Super Kid Icarus. Well, beyond, get this, it being on a 32 meg cartridge, which is pretty interesting. That's the type of cartridge that more intensive games like Chrono Trigger or the Donkey Kong Country trilogy use. What's interesting to me is the claim that this game is long awaited. Does that mean that this is something that's been known about for a while? Well, seemingly yes. The next source is from nearly 2 years prior, in June 1994. It appears in Super Play magazine, issue 20, on page 73 of the Daydreaming section. The Daydreaming section is where readers would write in their greatest dreams and the sort for games, which immediately makes me question the legitimacy of the claims. The tone of the other replies seems like the editor's screwing with those who wrote in. Like, look at this submission from Lisa Nichols. I'd love to see a platform game with a puppy dog. A Westie with a really waggy tail. Look, Lisa, you stick to the pictures, and I'll handle the words, okay? What a prick! Beyond that, and also featuring one of the most depraved things I've ever had the displeasure of reading in my entire life, the specifications given are really suspicious. How would the editor know when it was gonna be announced, let alone a planned release date? I don't know, this seems like it was either piggybacking off a previous rumor, or that it was just written to screw with the readers. Which leads me to ask if there's an even earlier source of this rumor. That brings us to our next and earliest known instance of a Super Nintendo Kid Icarus game being mentioned, which is in Game Power issue 25, released in February 1994. This is an Italian publication, which means that I can't read it. But we have technology. I used Google Translate and tried to scramble together what this is trying to say, and ended up with, in about a year we should see an SNES version of one of the funnest games to ever be released on the NES, Kid Icarus. The title should be using a 24 megabit cartridge, and promises to be one of the liveliest titles of the year. Well, that's at least what Nintendo claims, and they've yet to be wrong. A big difference here is the cartridge size, being claimed to be 24 megs, while the 1996 article claims it's using a 32 meg cart. This is indicative of either two things: that this alleged game grew throughout its supposed development, or that the two articles picked file sizes that sound impressive for their times. 24 meg games were still pretty impressive in '94. Earthbound, which was considered incredibly impressive at the time, used a 24 meg cart, and it was released in August '94 in Japan. So it being modified to sound more impressive as time goes on makes pretty decent sense. The most interesting thing here is the entire "or says Nintendo" bit, as that seems to imply that Nintendo had given official word on this, which if they have, we wouldn't be here right now. This is probably a measure done by the publication, to direct reader disappointment if Super Kid Icarus doesn't release away from them and onto Nintendo. Needless to say, each of these three sources have their own massive problems. Game Power's giving baseless reports, and it seems to suggest that Nintendo themselves had already announced this game, which as we all know, they haven't. Super Plays comes from a section that's seemingly meant to screw with readers. Not to mention, they know entirely too much, and likely made that stuff up to boost their credibility as a magazine, just in case the rumor came true, and is likely piggybacking off of Game Power. This leaves GameFan as the only potential source that can be considered legit, based on the fact that the section was shown to have correct info, as seen in the Willy Wombat report. Despite this, I think that this report is still also likely piggybacking off the previous reports of a Super Nintendo Kid Icarus game due to the nature of the magazine industry. That leaves a single report left, and it is the one that, in my opinion, puts the nail in the coffin of this rumor, being the alleged EGM report. EGM is the biggest one here. It's the one that most of you guys might recognize. So, the origins of the EGM allegations come from the Lost Levels forum, where OP says, "Does anybody else remember the EGM where they spoke about a Kid Icarus being developed for the Super Nintendo? It was in Quarterman's column back in about 95 or 96. I threw all my old issues away, so I don't remember which one it was. It said that a KI sequel and another game, just like Super Metroid before it, was very far into development on the SNES, but dropped as the company's resources were allocated to Nintendo 64 development. Nintendo focused all its efforts to 64, leaving current 16-bit projects behind. It's common knowledge that there is a Star Fox 2 for SNES that never got published as well. I am almost 100% sure that this was a real line in Quarterman's column 10 years ago. I hope that somebody else remembers this. Now, this sounds pretty convincing on first impressions. Calling upon facts with Star Fox 2 gives it a sense of legitimacy. However, the reputability of EGM and its reporters are similarly incredibly important. EGM as a whole is a mixed bag. They've gotten plenty of things correct in the past, but have also gotten a lot of things wrong. So let's take a closer look at Quarterman is a notorious hoaxer within EGM, and is known for reporting purposefully false information. While yes, there are some very specific things that he has gotten correct in the past, a broken clock is right twice a day. That's why I didn't seek out the dedicated EGM issue, as if anything, Quarterman reporting on it gives the rumor even less credibility. So, at the end of the day, all we have pointing towards Super Kid Icarus' existence are an instance of hearsay, obvious piggybacking, an article that has legitimate claims within, but is also likely piggybacking off previous reports, and a notorious rumor monger saying it was real, but was unreleased due to the imminent release of the Nintendo 64? Do you guys realize how crazy that is? There are zero primary or reliable resources to back this claim up, yet we've continued to perpetuate its existence? Now, this isn't to say that there was never a Super Nintendo Kid Icarus game conceived, planned, or even in development at some point. Nintendo as a company has a smattering of previously cancelled, unreleased, unrevealed, and unproduced titles under their belt. A company that's been around as long as they have is destined to, after all. However, we can't take all of these rumors at face value and perpetuate them without substantial evidence one way or another. Substantial evidence that these claims of Super Kid Icarus just don't have. We need to acknowledge Super Kid Icarus as what it is, and that's baseless speculation both fabricated and perpetuated by magazine editors in an effort to sell more copies and nothing more. I am so sick of hearing about Super Kid Icarus in the same breath as Star Fox 2 or Kid Kirby, so please stop declaring it as fact when it is a load of nonsense. If you watched to the end, thank you, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.